Good morning. I'm reporting to you right after the IEP meeting we just had. It didn't take that long, and I had picked up my lawyer this morning, Andrea Spratt, from the Fremont Street train station, and so we could go over a few things. She had just received a phone call last night from an anonymous person that the IEP would not go favorably for Jeremiah, and that at the IEP meeting they would not approve him for residential placement. If you recall previously, I explained that we had a hearing unless they would give us the IEP meeting and put an approval for his residential placement. They did give us the IEP meeting, which was this morning. Andrea came from where she was to, which is the lawyer. She came from Manhattan, which I'm very appreciative of, to physically be there. She had really been working really hard. And so I am reporting to you from a home full of joy. They did approve Jeremiah's placement, and so they approved him for residency, which really doesn't happen, especially when he never posed a problem at school. So I know this to be supernatural. And just beforehand, she and I were talking in the car. She says, "You seem to be in good spirits," which is really a good attitude to have. And I told her, I said, "You know what, Andrea, I believe a lot in prayer. I believe that God's will always prevails, no matter how the outcome is. I trust the Lord, especially for my son. He knows how much I've prayed. My mom has fasted and prayed. We've all been in God's face, so to speak, and just really praying and asking God to intervene. And I felt a shift earlier on this month, so I knew this would actually turn out to be a really good thing. Even though last night Andrea had received that phone call and she wasn't too encouraged by it. And she says, "You know what? It's good to pray. It's good to pray." She said, "I asked my husband to pray." And so I said, "Yeah, so we'll just see what happens. And no matter what, we're going to go to hearing." We went into the IEP meeting. The school psychologist was there along with Jeremiah's teacher. Jeremiah's speech therapist from last year was there as witness. A representative from the district attorney's office, from the DOE's office was there, and as well as Andrea and myself, plus the assistant principal. Then we had the behavioral analyst who did Jeremiah's free report by phone there to help to support us. And I didn't have to say much. I was prepared to speak for my son. I didn't have to say much. Andrea spoke, and the assistant principal says, "I don't mean to rush this meeting along, but I do have another meeting appointment to go to. However, I want to let you know that we've really carefully looked at the documents presented to us from the hospital, which were the medical records, as well as the behavioral analyst report. And they compared it to his behavior at school. Even though he had some unruly behavior, was never violent at school, as I mentioned to you previously." And she says, "However, we want you to know, Ms. Gonzalez, that we actually are going to approve Jeremiah for residency. This is very rare. We really don't approve him for residency, especially since he never posed a problem at school. However, we see the seriousness of what had taken place. His lack of understanding of his size towards his 4-year-old brother, which I mentioned earlier in one of my other videos. Jeremiah had assaulted his brother, threw him down some stairs, punched him in the stomach earlier on, etc., etc. And we realize he really doesn't have an understanding of how violent he can be, or his size compared to his little brother. So we actually are going to approve Jeremiah for residency. At that instant, Andrea, who's sitting to the left of me, turns around and looks at me dumbfounded. And I just smiled. I said, I really appreciate that, guys. And I expressed my gratitude to them. And so we are moving forward. Be encouraged. God is always on time, no matter what it may look like. Hey, she received a negative report just last night that they were not going to approve it. But it's never what man says, it's what God says. And if you're a person who loves the Lord, in spite of any inconsistencies you may have as weakness or whatever, I really make it my business to really be with the Lord on my knees before Him on a daily basis. I think that that is very important. It's very important if you want to maintain that place of intimate fellowship with Him. You build your confidence. Your confidence soars when you come out of the presence of God, and I'm just really thankful. I'm really grateful. Andrea and I shared a very big hug towards at the end of the IEP meeting, and I got a little emotional out of my gratitude towards her, which Dave and I were planning to take her out later on in the future, and the behavioral analyst, and just give them a little blessing. And I'm just really amazed at the faithfulness of God. I'm really amazed. It's been such a journey going through this with my son. Now, there still might be a little bit of a process as far as getting him in. I mentioned previously that I was looking into a school called Devereaux, school for autistic children up in upstate New York. It's 2 hours from us. It's an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous campus. It looks like farmland, and that is exactly what Jeremiah loves. I think it's like a form of therapy for him, because when we take him to my mom's house, which is, you can see the deers sometimes passing through where my mom lives in upstate, upper New York. I shouldn't say upstate, it's like upper New York. He can sit in the backyard and just, it's like therapy for him. He loves nature. He loves the rustling of the green leaves on the trees. He loves seeing squirrels pass by. It creates such a calming environment for him. And you will find that with autistic children, it's such a calming, soothing environment. A lot of these children love nature. They love animals. They love to see the deers passing by them. When Jeremiah was smaller, he used to want to ride on the deers, which we know is not a good idea, but he never was afraid. He was never afraid. He loves animals in general. So this campus is all like, there's farms all around the campus. There's like one diner, one town diner, which is excellent because Jeremiah loves his burgers and French fries. So I considered that geographically as well, that there would be a diner there. That even if it's just one diner, it's a little bit comforting for him to know that he can go to that diner, or we can take him to the diner when we go visit him, or take him out on the weekends to come home. So it's really amazing. I'm still a little stunned, but in a good way. I'm really happy. So it might be a process. So what happens from here on? Greg Foster, his teacher, I shouldn't say his name, but his teacher, excuse me, is going to finalize his IEP concerning the meeting we had today, the IEP meeting. We should be getting those documents by Wednesday. Once I get that, then what happens is it has to go through a referral process. For example, since we've looked into Devereaux, the admissions director asked to get a referral from the CBST, which is a separate office, part of the Department of Education, that will say, we are referring Jeremiah, and we recommend him for residential placement, and that will solidify his place at Devereaux. However, he still needs to go on a dinner visit at Devereaux, and they need to make sure he's a good fit for the program. Now, Jeremiah's IQ averages in the very low range, which is, it seems to be compatible with the level of IQs that the students have at Devereaux. However, he needs to come in, I think, for 1 or 2 visits. I go through the paperwork, and then if they feel he's a good match, then we do the process. But there's still a little bit of a process, but this has been the major hurdle to cross over in making sure that the Board of Ed would actually give us that referral and say, yes, Jeremiah does need to be placed in a residential facility, even though he didn't pose a problem so extensively at school as he did at home here. But they understand, they read all the documents, they saw how crazy it got here. So really happy. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. It feels like a big weight has been lifted off of my shoulders, even though I've been having an inner peace. But it took a lot of work to get here, but you have to advocate for your kids, especially when it comes to the Board of Ed and the Department of Education. You have to. You have to, you must. You cannot be, if you're a person who's naturally shy and introverted. I think I'm an introverted person, but when it comes to my kids, I change hats right away. And I give them lots of eye contact, and I let them know I know what I'm talking about. And I know my kids are supposed to be having a fair and appropriate public education. I know their rights under the laws of the Special Needs Act and things like that. So I know that they need to have what they need to have, and you have to be a little bit aggressive with them. You can be diplomatic. You don't have to curse. You don't have to yell to get your point across. But yes, you have to let them know you know what you're talking about. So when you have the Lord on your side, it makes it 100% better. So there's the update. Moving forward. Take care.